So today I am joined by some industry big hitters, and what that means is they're big data hitters, folks. They're doing what we love to do with data, which is an awful lot, and we'll find out that in a moment. So on my right here, Andrew Byatt from Flannery Plant Hire. Oliver Dixon from Potter Plant Hire. James Walton from Blackwood Plant Hire. And the wonderful Lewis Bassett from the CBA. Right, we're going to kick off with Andy. Andy, please just give a brief introduction to yourself, but also to Flannery. A lot of people know who you are, of course, but there might be some people here that are not too familiar.
Okay, Andy Byatt. I've been with Flannery now for, feels like a lifetime, 10 months. Prior to that, all my background has been with manufacturers or distributors, so plant hire very different, albeit I've got lots of experience on machines, the data they produce and how machines are used. I've got the longest job title ever, which I'm trying to reduce, but it's Head of Innovation and Sustainability in a nutshell. So I work with all the manufacturers to understand what machines we should be purchasing, technology in particular, whether that's data, safety systems, productivity tools, that's all part of my remit. Data, telemetry also falls under my remit. We've got an in-house data function that makes use of all the data from the different providers. I also do our carbon reporting, setting our carbon reduction targets and milestones to ultimately achieving net zero in line with our clients and contractors' ambitions, and involvement with events like this, exhibitions, industry associations. So a very varied role, very interesting.
Wow. I think you need about 4 people to do this job, folks.
Yeah,
so not only that, you have one of the biggest fleets in the UK. Tell me what the sort of size and scale of fleet that you're talking about and managing.
Yeah, I don't think I actually answered your question, which tell us about Flannery, which is, as you say, is a leading national plant hire, not just of construction equipment, but also operated plant as well. We've got an extensive resource of operators to go along with that equipment. We also pride ourselves on offering skills hubs located throughout the UK, where particularly around major project activity, we'll help with training people in the local areas and also with social values to make contractors' lives easier with the clients that they serve. Our fleet, I think in the Hiboo environment currently, we've got just over 4,500 connected assets from 20 different integrations and growing, particularly with new electric equipment that's coming onto the market. It's a big focus, as you can imagine, at the moment.
And that's Flannery. Wow, guys, that's why it's got a lot of work to do there. Oliver, you are from Potter Plant Hire, and actually the two of you do work together as well in the industry. It's a collaborative industry after all. Tell us a little bit about yourself first, because it's an interesting story and therefore angle of how you've come into the industry, and also then, like we said, explain what Potter do.
Yeah, of course. So my name's Ollie. I'm the Data and Systems Manager at Potter Plant Hire. It's hard to follow up on that, I'm not going to lie. But I was actually with a car rental industry before this for best part of a decade nearly. And it's a much more corporate world, but that's sort of why I've been brought into Potter's, sort of help Potter's transition to a sort of more corporate and efficient way of running things, more customer service focused as well. And similar as well, I've actually been there for only just coming up to a year. But yeah, we sort of focus mostly on construction, agricultural as well, so we'll hire out to anyone from a government contract to Joe Bloggs down the road as well, anyone who needs it. But yeah, we've been going on nearly 30 years, so it's a strong growing industry.
Certainly is, and welcome to it as well, and a baptism of fire of data that you've been having. James, we're going to tell from your accent that you're working a bit further north of where we are right here, aren't you, at Blackwood? Tell me a little bit about yourself and Blackwood.
So I'm James, the business support manager at Blackwood. This is my translator.
God help you.
No, so I've been with Blackwoods for over a year now. Previously I was in the plant hire industry for the past 22 years. Bit of a kind of rags to riches, but started in the tools, HGV driver, hire desk, manager, regional manager, and then I went to work for Syrinx hire software as a consultant for 4 years. I've found myself back in plant hire a year ago. Travelled, tired of the travelling up and down the road every week, but brought into Blackwood plant to predominantly look after the Syrinx system in-house. That then grew arms and legs, and I'm now looking after all 5 different softwares and all the different telematics systems and things as well as Hiboo.
So plenty of work to do there. What about your fleet as well?
Yeah, so we're running in terms of obviously Flannery's 4,500, but in terms of Scottish independent companies, Blackwood has about the largest independent fleet. So we've got 450 machines, running with about 17 different integrations as well. Constant new products that's going off customer demand. Electric's not something we're fully into yet, but it's coming. And basically, the past year it's been a bit of a learning curve for me. I'd always worked with plant hire up to maybe 20 tonnes. Now I'm working with plant up to 50 tonnes now, so it's every day is a skill day.
Certainly is, and part of the schooling of the industry is what Lewis has been brought in to do and your role with decarbonisation and sustainability. Tell us a little bit about that, Lewis, and why what the CPA are doing to support members like this.
CPA is the largest UK trade association for construction plant hire companies, and the role of the CPA is to not just to set a sort of standard and level playing field across the sector, but also to support the sector and represent the sector with government and with escalating targets for net zero. There's a lot of challenges along that way, and we need to make sure that any progress that we make is not going to be to the detriment of the industry. It's going to work for business, and there's going to be a commercial angle to it. And so I'm competing with Andy here on lengthy job titles, but decarbonisation and sustainability manager it's not just it's an advisory role. It's not about pushing the sector into something that's not commercially viable yet. It's about picking our battles and making sure that we identify areas that we can work on and areas that we can focus on without pushing people down routes that aren't commercially viable yet.
Fantastic, well done. Thank you very much for the introduction, guys. Now we want to get into the data discussion. And Andy, you're going to do a lot of talking, and people are going to go, well, Andy's done that for me. But you've been involved in this now. And isn't it interesting, though, folks? A year, and a year. What this is saying is that we actually have people in the industry that are now becoming leaders in these roles because the demand is coming from the clients. And that's really why it's exciting to be here today. Andy, when we're talking about the basics, okay, what does it take to get all of those 20 different OEMs and then more to come together and give you the information you need in one space? So for the people that aren't familiar with this, there's a thing called an API, and also there is some manufacturers helping you probably more than others.
Yeah, it's a big part of my day-to-day battle, really, in that there is an industry standard for the sharing of telematics data on construction equipment. Without getting too technical, not because I can't go that technical, but there's an AEMP2 or an ISO standard where there are a mandatory set of data fields that manufacturers will share for end users to feed into one integrated platform. Part of my job and day-to-day battles is challenging those manufacturers to give that data in the format that we want, the frequency that both internally we at Flannery need and our end users, to enable both ourselves and our customers to interpret that data and make meaningful action from the basis of that data. And it's not a great list. It's kind of where is the asset, what is the asset, fuel usage, idle time, productivity related data. And it's one of the main reasons we came across to the Hiboo platform, that we get these API credentials from the source, the manufacturer providing the assets, feed it all into the Hiboo platform, and then you can see what would be 20 different logins to view that data just through one single login in one web portal. But not only that, we can also provide that consolidated data from the Hiboo platform via an API to our end customers as well, because in some cases they don't want to view our platform, they just want to integrate the hired asset data into their world rather than ours.
And you say there's a battle there, Andy, and I know what is really important to you is the work, and I've got to say the work that Andy and the Flannery team have been doing is actually helping everybody else in the industry, because by demanding more information from the OEMs, that information then becomes available on the feeds that they're having for everybody else that has that equipment as well, isn't it? And you've been doing some pushing on that.
Yeah, there's two parts of that. One of them is that the industry standard, there's only a handful of data fields that are mandatory, so different manufacturers will interpret that differently. Some will give the data, some won't. Some give it in different time frames, which makes it very difficult for the likes of Hiboo to integrate that data. But really that's where they add value, to collate that data, process it, aggregate it, and then give it to the likes of us guys here today in the format that we need it. The second part of that is that industry standard is only really relevant to certain types of plant. So if it's a generator, a crane, and more so where there's electric equipment, that's new data fields which aren't part of the standard. So we're really challenging now when we're looking to acquire new plant. Yes, it needs to meet our customers' requirements on efficiency, uptime, utilisation, but we need the data in that format in order to manage it, particularly with electric equipment.
And of course, we're in the site sustainability area right now, and there is hydrogen over there with Pura Ulemco, and obviously the Element 1 project, which is featured as well. Oliver, when you first came into your role, Mondays were not very pleasant, were they, Oliver? Because Monday was the day that you came into the office after a great weekend and then had to put all of these reports together in the fashion that each client wanted them in. That was a bit of a challenge which has gone away. Tell me about the importance of that and how it's helped you do your role better.
Yeah, I think a lot of the problems that originated from that was each individual machine, you had to go through certain amounts of troubleshooting with it. One of the things that we found specifically at the moment with Hiboo is all of the data comes directly from the OEMs that we've just discussed there. So it takes out quite a lot of the middleman management there. So every Monday morning I'd have to come in and manually make a report, go through each machine individually, see what's working, what's not, everything like that. And now it's come down to the point where I will come in on a Monday morning and I'll spend 10 minutes looking through a pre-made report which tells me what machines haven't reported in a certain time period, anything like that, anything that's picked up specific faults. It's really shortened down my time quite a lot, so I can now focus on a lot of different aspects of my job now. It's made me a lot more efficient, to say the least.
And when you're taking away that mundaneness and the Monday feeling, that is really important. And then we were talking earlier, and I think when you've got people within the plant sector, the client's demands or the expectation is that something is there at a specific time every week, or even we'll come on to real time later on. And that's, a real stressor that's now taken away, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, the digital aspect's only increasing and the demand for all of this information is only going to increase from customers. But the biggest thing for us is automation. Just being able to automate everything coming in and going out is a significant improvement for us, and making it as easy as possible for the customers as well. Also reduces the amount of influx we get from customer queries or any other problems that might have occurred where we have to then look into it. But on the flip side of that as well, if there are any problems that do occur, it makes it a lot easier for me personally to look into it, and means we're also a lot more proactive in that space. Because we can actually, instead of huffing and puffing saying, oh, it's going to take us ages to figure out what's going on wrong here, we can get it fixed within about, I'd say, 1 day most of the time. It speeds it up a lot.
Fantastic. So when we come to Scotland and the projects you're working on, your equipment can be quite far away from home, as it were, but it also, you know, when you're coming to the way in which Blackwood's work, you've started to take on data for the first time as well. Flannery's been doing it for a quite long time. That in itself, the process of getting everything, feeding in the APIs and setting everything up, what was that like to do? Because that's the critical sort of, I guess, onboarding scenario when you go from the traditional methods to digital and what you were doing before.
It was actually quite satisfying. I think I remember speaking with Bernard for Hiboo during the setup process. Me obtaining the sort of the API credentials from the OEM and being able to put them in myself and watch that data start to flow through. Having worked with software, and it's quite satisfying to be able to do it yourself. Back to Andy said, going back to the suppliers and asking them for these credentials, some of them are very happy to give you them straight away, and some of them hold back a little bit because it's maybe a bit out of the unknown. What are these guys wanting our credentials for? We already give them our platform.
Yeah.
But now they're seeing that there's nothing wrong with the platform, we just want to centralise it into one place, you know, so we're working with them, not against them with it, you know, it's just getting into one place with it is satisfying.
And the also satisfying thing is the phone scenario that happened before, isn't it? That where you're going, right, you've got a Komatsu guy on our team, well, give me some information about that machine, because that was all sort of internal phone calls to different people, isn't it, because of the way in which the business was working.
It's, having 17 different tabs open at the bottom of a laptop screen is impossible. JCB, Komatsu, Kobelco, so I've set every single person up in the business that needs to be set up on Hiboo. We obviously pay a fee per asset as opposed to per user, so it's open to all in the business. So now these guys have got this at their fingertips, we can put it on their phones for them, and you know, it's saved all these internal phone calls around about depots in Scotland. We have people in different offices, you know, so everybody can obtain that data at their fingertips now.
That's really great. And now we're talking about data in the context of using this, but we've got 2,000 nearly members of the CPA, and you know, a lot of those businesses, some are large, but some are very small, Lewis. And I think what's really important about data as we move forward is how you can help those individuals understand more about what's available, but also the kind of information that clients are asking for, isn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, we've got the plant hire members have got how they want to see those reports and what, you know, how they prefer to receive that data, and then construction sites have got the same again. So yes, we want to avoid generating various different reports to different people. Yeah, that's something that's gonna create administrative costs. So we're working with the Supply Chain Sustainability School, who are really leading on the work to create some telematics guidance. And you know, we're for the CPA's position is a sector-wide view. So we want to help with guidance. We want to help with trying to make that whole process easier. The Hiboo system is perfect for that. So the short-term drivers for these, you know, the data systems has been, yeah, there's increased pressure to do carbon counting. That's very complicated. It's very difficult to do manually. So these systems can actually automate some of that, make it easier for some of the smaller members to adopt, because you can't have the £10,000, you know, consultancy fees for everyone. It is just an increased operating cost. So having these data systems that do some of that work for you automatically, none of it's an exact science. So, and yeah, we need to all acknowledge that and make it easier to adopt, because if everyone is doing a close as they can figure, then that is better than having one or two suppliers that are doing an exact one. So the short term, I think the carbon counting is gonna help with there as well. In the long term, though, there's no data for the whole sector. It's very difficult to know how much diesel we use, figure out a use case for some of the newer equipment. So low emission plant, low carbon plant, it's very case specific. You know, certain things, hybrid will be really good in certain scenarios, electrification will work in some. You know, you've got solar options, there's all these different options and all these different approaches for different use cases. And telematics is really going to help us to identify, oh, this machine I'm only using for 2 hours a day, so I don't need as much battery life. It's informing you how you can improve. And efficiency as well. You know, the data is really helps with just running a business more efficiently. You know, where are my machines? Am I getting them crossing over each other all the time on delivery routes? If the machine's not in use, can I switch it off? Are they even using the machine on site anymore? Can I give the customer something back and say, look, you're not using that one, we could swap it out for something smaller if there's a generator. You know, it helps inform your business, and that's going to be the easiest thing in the short term, isn't it? If you're not using a machine, switch it off. If you're using the wrong machine, switch it out for a proper one.
And you set Andy up really well there, Lewis, because when we're talking about, well done, that was great, well done, Lewis. Andy, one of the biggest things that we've always started with the data piece, you know, everybody talks about idle time and everybody talks about, you know, we just talked about emissions there and things like that. But this isn't just emissions for emissions' sake. Idle time is reduced, that means you use less fuel. And the commercial impact of how we take things and do things better is massive when you've got a huge fleet like that. So what have you been looking at from that sort of commercial piece, and how is that helping Flannery be a better business?
Well, I think there are two parts of that. It may come as a surprise to some in the room, maybe not others, but across our fleet of thousands of assets, the average idle time is just over 40%. Certain assets you can see up to 80%, but obviously there's extremes both ways to get it to an average of 40. And the amount of average idling that you see is heavily dependent on the product type. Products like an articulated dumper that you're waiting to be loaded, even though the engine's idling, it is still working, but the data would tell you that the product's idling. But we find that data is critical to understand and be more, you know, a better trusted advisor to the client or contractor on how assets are utilised. Could it be off-site, off-hired, or an alternative product used? But also, it goes hand in hand with the training and wider service that we offer. So, as an example, idling data feeds goes hand in hand with our eco-operator training, where we'll offer a value-add service and no additional cost to clients and contractors. Looking at the data, observing practice on site, and helping operators, site supervisors to understand what the effect of idling is in carbon emissions. Really importantly, cost, depending on your fuel cost and what type of fuel you're using, that is substantial. And we say really it's just a free of charge, low-hanging fruit, which is obvious as an action to take now to significantly reduce carbon emissions and costs. It also acts in a way that if you can operate your machine more efficiently today, when trying to transition into electric equipment, by reducing idle time and maximising utilisation, that makes that pathway or transition to electric equipment a hell of a lot easier at an operational level on site.
Fantastic, thanks very much. And when you're talking about the way in which you can report is really impactful on the idle time and things like that, but also when you're looking at reporting and what your customers need, it's actually getting them access to the data, isn't it? So tell me and explain how that now works for you to allow your customers to see information.
Yeah, so I mean, at the moment what we've done is we've set up a feed from Hiboo where our customers will basically be sent a link to set up an account to view their machines on Hiboo. So that will be anything that goes on hire via contract. But we're also in the process of looking into something like a QR code, where currently we have that on our machines where you can see a cert for a machine or even the operator's manual. We're considering changing that so you can also see the telematics data by scanning in and logging in via that way as well. It just changes the ease of use significantly by doing something that way so that people can actually get immediate access rather than necessarily feeding it through an API feed like some customers would prefer to do. It gives them the two options to do so.
And James, you've obviously made the transition, but also, you've actually told me something quite interesting, because when you started interrogating the data, it led to them buying more stuff, folks. Didn't it, James? And I mean, that was really interesting. And a fleet of JCB equipment started to arrive pretty shortly after that, didn't it?
Yeah, so basically, after interrogating the data, our MD, Paul, he made the decision to spend a considerable amount of money buying 51 JCB machines based on that data for the utilisation. And sometimes you get some shocks with it as well, because we would have thought the other week that dozers would have been one of the most, machines that would have moved all day, and it turned out to be articulated dumpers. So it's good collaborating all that info into the one place, and you certainly would have never saw that just looking at individual OEMs systems.
And again, it's also changed the way in which you look at maintenance as well, isn't it? From the team and where they've got to go around the different sites to look after equipment that is feeding in its health or not so healthy alerts.
Yeah, so again, it's the same as from my time when I worked with Point of Rental with Syringe. Automated reports is something you're asked for every single day now, so being able to then put it from one system and create those reports, because I say JCBs, but it might be JCB dumpers, rollers, excavators, so it's not always the same type of equipment with each OEM. So being able to have those collaborated reports, and you can set it up at your fingertips within minutes, that's really changed the way that our service plans go with the business as well now.
So, Lewis, when equipment gets more expensive, as it has done over the last few years, it's about how we can look at the performance of equipment, but also, get more people into the industry as well to help maintain it and do things like that. And then when you're talking about decarbonisation, and when you're talking about the wider stuff that you do at the CPA, that's really important, that you're showing the next generation that's coming through the kind of roles that we now see ahead of us.
Yeah, I mean, there's with young people are interested in in the environmental sustainability of their employers now, and this it gives people an opportunity to do some actual real world stuff. I find a lot of the carbon conversations tend to be there's a lot of talking shops out there. There's a lot of promises tomorrow, but we can see that in this industry things are moving and things are happening today. They might not be zero. There might be a lot of uncertainty around decades time, but there are things that we can do today. Progress is not the enemy of perfection. Should not be the enemy of progress. And it's about making sure the government knows that too. So a lot of time we're seen as a high emissions industry. We use a lot of fuel. But we're also one of the most progressive in terms of trying to reduce that diesel consumption. So it's the data really helps us to show that case to potential employees and to the government departments that are sort of chasing us up on carbon emissions.
So Andy, when you talk about the government, when you talk about accountability and things like that, your clients are now demanding a lot more from you data-wise, and how are they actually using that to, look at the way in which they want their projects to go? So I'm talking about data coming in faster. I'm talking as we move towards real-time data that allows us to do things on the job site that says, hey, the prime mover has gone. We know that because there's a great big row of idling ADTs there. How can we use this data in a more practical sense to do the job?
It varies heavily by customer and client. Even clients or contractors on the same project will vary very differently with how their demands on how they use the data, how frequently they want the data. But really, that's where we've got projects where there is a demand for real-time data, and we have to go back to the different manufacturers to ensure that we get that almost real-time. And it does vary very wildly from the different OEM manufacturer sources as to how frequently they give the data. Even so much so that one given manufacturer can give different data points at different time.
Really?
So as an example, you may get total hours on the machine at one point in time, but idling at a different one. So when you're therefore looking to integrate it, you could have a machine that's worked no hours in a day, but yet it's done 3 hours idle time. So they're the kind of challenges you have to overcome. And by pushing for more frequent data, that hopefully gets around a lot of those issues. But we are seeing particularly, I mean, it is growing ever more so, the customer demand for that data, whether it's via an API that our customers handle internally, or where we add value through the Hiboo platform, our own in-house data team that will give data not just on telemetry, but human form recognition incursions, costs, utilization in a one PDF format. That's the insight and value that we are adding to customers around safety, around costs and utilization. But it does vary wildly by customers as to whether they actually do anything about it and take action off the basis of that data. More and more so, we're also seeing carbon reporting is frequently becoming top of the agenda, not just about delivering products on time and to cost. More and more demands around the carbon impact of using machines with different fuel types, which again, we've now got the ability to do in the Hiboo platform to adjust specific assets running on different types of fuel. Is becoming ever more so the top of the agenda.
And so, as we come over to how you're looking at data and analysing it as well, the fleet decisions become important, don't they? To say how we fleet matching, how are we working with customers in the context of delivering a project, and then we're obviously going to get to historic data down the line as well, aren't we?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that we were looking at was we sort of basically did a case study when it came to doing the idling time on our machines. So beforehand, we were seeing in specifically winters and summers, when it was a drastic temperature change, the idle times drastically increased. Obviously, you can't expect an operator to sit in a -1 degree cab for a full day without any form of heating, just wrapped up. So we expected that to increase just on keeping them warm. So we've been looking into alternatives for that, and we started rolling out some battery-powered heaters just to see how it affected the idling time. And over time, that drastically reduced the amount of idle time that we saw in the machines to the point where it would match idle times on regular temperature days. And now that's led to us sort of doing further case studies into how we can reduce idling time further, including eco operators, same as Andy. And also on top of that, we're now looking at alternatives in terms of fuel sources as well. So, whether it's a fuel cell, hydrogen cell, stuff like that to help reduce the emissions coming out from the idling time at least. And even to the point where we're now looking at a dual use heater / cooler, working with local engineers for stuff like that. But it's mostly coming from the case studies we're now able to do in the time that's been freed up from all of this software.
So in other words, it's productive time you've got back instead of, oh no, I've missed another line on the spreadsheet scenario. 100%. Again, when we look at what Blackwood are doing, and when we look at how your business has changed, you've now adopted something that has allowed you to change the jobs of people within the business, hasn't it? Has it brought you closer together, and how has it helped you actually do things like Oliver's discussing?
Well, more people shout my name now because they say, James, set me up on Hiboo. Yeah, so it's brought us closer. But no, to be honest, the kind of background with Blackwood jumping on the telematics, the mixed telematics data, we actually initially approached by a key customer who the biggest thing for them was they wanted to consolidate all the data, and we actually approached one of the OEMs and said, could you build us a platform to pull them in? They went, oh, we would, but considerable cost behind it, because obviously, with all due respect, they don't want to be having other manufacturers' machines in their platforms. So when I went to look at the different systems, the Hiboo was the first name that flicked up when I saw on LinkedIn, and there's plenty of market leaders in the UK already before seeing a French company coming into the market, and we looked at this as an opportunity to, I'd say, first of all, you have a tracking system to track machines for the location. That is the most important thing you've always thought, but then all the data stuff has become the more important side of it, because machines theft isn't just quite as high as what it was. So the actual data side is the more important side of the tracking and the reporting system out it. But we've got clients now telling us that they want to use it for decisions on how much a project could cost, because if they tracked over a year of all the assets they have on hire to us through Hiboo, they can look at that and say, well, that's how much fuel we used, that's how much idling time, that's how much carbon was burned. And so it's opened up a whole different avenue, and although only a few of our key customers are benefiting from it just now, hopefully over the next couple of years we'll see more customers ask us for that data and make it a part of a regular offering in the business.
And also, we're not just talking about data coming from machines. You all have other systems that things need to integrate in. You touched on it, Andy, with other data-driven things like human form recognition. And, how is you integrated with other things as well as not just the sort of Hiboo platform?
Yeah, well, we have our HGV fleet running through there as well, and although the customers aren't asking us for that, it's a benefit for us to have every single asset, including HGVs, running on that Hiboo map. So we have our Scania, we have web fleet, different telematics that aren't, as I say, information that customers would ask us for, but in-house that helps us keep a track of everything in one place now.
And you've got the Syrinx integration as well, haven't you?
Yeah, we've got the Syrinx integration with that as well. So obviously, having worked in hire software, it was very satisfying for me to see that. And again, having worked with different software companies over the years, one of the most pleasing aspects when we went on board with Hiboo was we said, right, we want to integrate with this, we want to integrate with that, and they went, okay, that's it, and it was done. There was no coming and going with, oh, this will cost you £10,000 to integrate, this will cost you £20,000. It was just a seamless process, and as you said with Andy, when people make changes to systems that benefits all their customers, and there's a lot of companies out there that will charge a customer for one thing, and all their customers benefit from it, but one person's been hit for the cost. It's not been like that at all with Hiboo. It's been very, very user friendly.
Fantastic. Now, Lewis, when we talk about all of this integration, when we talk about data, when we talk about everything else, you talked briefly about this sustainability supply chain skills. Say that at this time of day, folks. It's really important that you gather information from your members, but also do partnerships like that to get the right advice, isn't it? And where can people find advice from on this stuff from the CPA?
So we don't want every different, there's a lot of environmental groups, there's a lot of people that are making guidance in these areas. We don't want everyone to be duplicating stuff. So there are, if there's something that's already out there, then we'll support it and we'll get involved in it. But we don't want to be duplicating various guidance documents from various different people. So yes, the supply chain school is currently looking at doing a telematics guidance document, specifically around data and data use and how it can be used by suppliers, sites. We've got a separate document around the use of power and generators, so that will incorporate very similar sort of areas without crossover, but around the power systems and how you set up site power and how you use energy on site, minimizing generator sizes, things like that. So there's various ports of guidance and advice out there, but ask the guys that are using it.
Absolutely. Right, folks. You're probably very, very thirsty at the moment, so I'm going to start wrapping up. Andy, this is going to be a challenge for you, but everybody else has a go to think about things, because what excites you about data for the future and you can be quick on this one or give us a bit more information. But what are you thinking, projecting out there, knowing the information you're getting now, but what's look like in the future?
I think there are two parts of that. The first part is that with Hiboo, with thousands of assets in one place, it now takes less than 3 seconds to load all those thousands of machines in one place. And previously, up until the point that we had Hiboo in place, we were quite restricted with what data was shown internally when using a telematics platform, integration platform, and also with what we provided to customers. Now there is no restriction on what data that we can show in a web portal platform and providing an API to our customers. So it's faster access to data, more data, and without doubt, faster speed of development. Flannery is more than a bit demanding with what we're asking Hiboo to do, but I think quite rightly, it's all with the customers in mind, both internally and with customers. Apologise, it's quite long. The second part is just with the move to lower carbon solutions, progress as Lewis alluded to, and net zero. I'm looking forward to really challenging our supply partners on providing the data that we want at the frequency that we want in order to enable zero emission product to be managed, because it is going to be completely different to fossil fuel technologies today. Managing battery storage units related to where charge level on assets and how the two sit hand in hand, it's critical, the data, to ensure that that's a success.
Fantastic. So lots of well done, Andy. Yeah. Again, Oliver, you put yourself coming out of the industry into our industry, with fresh ideas and things like that. What are you excited about in the future?
The thing that's excited me the most so far, from what I can see for the future, is how much data is impacting the industry and how quickly it is impacting the industry as well. Like, the thing that excites me the most is probably how it's going to adapt to the future. So how we're going to see the fleet change, how we're going to see the way we approach contracts change, eco-operators, everything like that. It changes everything from start to finish with regards to how machinery is even manufactured. And like Andy said there, it also gets us as customers and also suppliers to challenge our own suppliers and our own customers to do the same.
Very good points. Thanks very much. James?
I think Oliver and Andy have said everything I could say on that there, so keep it short and sweet. It's going to help us be more efficient as a business and help our customers be more efficient, so that's all we can ask.
And Lewis, from a wider industry perspective, what the future holds, do you think?
Yeah, no, it's good. It's really reassuring that we're starting to. We've been engaging with government and every industry forum we can possibly get our hands on, and the narrative is starting to change. It is starting to be focused on the practical aspects. Is this actually going to work for business? What's scalable? Where? So I think it's quite reassuring to see that I think that is going to become more of a more prominent in the narrative. It won't just be, right, you've got to do this and we're not going to help you, and throwing the book at people. It is becoming much more collaborative now, so it's reassuring to see.
I'd just like to ask the panel whether the insights and the sort of easily digestible data that they've got in front of them now has influenced their commercial model at all in terms of incentivizing or indeed penalizing their clients in the use of their machinery in order to give everybody a competitive advantage.
Oh, he's practiced that question, hasn't he, folks? Right, fantastic. I'm gonna start with James for that one. Sorry, because Andy's just had a tremendous end there.
No, to be honest, there's a lot of things already out there, like for excess usage of machines and things that people are penalised with stuff. We're just looking at this more as a way to collate the data for the benefit of, procurement of machines over the years. We know how many hours they're using. The fact we can report on carbon now is great, as Lewis said. It's being able to give that to customers is an amazing thing. One of our customers actually, who works in the rail industry, they actually have a carbon calculator. As a supplier to them, they actually ask us to populate that. Doing that job before would have been monotonous task, which would have took days and days and days. So I think that's going to be the biggest benefit from that, and not so much decisions on, as Julian said, I can't even remember the length of your question there.
Don't worry, we'll let you off there, James. Oliver.
So for us, basically, I mean, again, it comes from a time-saving point of view that we've got. We've now had the time to actually sit down and start analysing how machines are idling, when they're idling, stuff like that. So we've spoken about that previously. But one thing we're starting to do now, we're not necessarily penalising our customers for it, but it does affect our servicing of the machines if it's left to idle for long periods of times when it doesn't need to. So what we've started doing now is we've started monitoring weekly if a machine goes over a certain amount of hours. Even if it's operating, even if it's idling, that's something we're focusing on. But it means that we can then look at if it's done 75 hours and 80% of that's idling, it means we can then educate our customer on that. So then we can speak to them. If they've got an operator of ours, we can educate the operator, or we can turn around to the customer if it's self-drive and maybe offer them some alternatives, or even go down there and do a bit of an eco-driving case ourselves.
And finally, Andy.
I wouldn't say necessarily penalise or offer as a commercial increase through the data. It's part of, what we do use it as part of the Flannery value add, that by virtue of the data, we can make recommendations around eco-operator training to reduce idling, not necessarily related to telemetry, but with the human form recognition data, we can look at, site X, you want to see that trend of incursions coming down when human form recognition has been fitted. We can offer red zone training through our skills hubs to help with that by virtue of the data that comes through. But internally as well, it can help with something as simple, just like a conflict resolution of a machine being returned from hire without any fuel in it. Before, you may have had to look on 20 different portals just to see that, but now in the Hiboo one, because we're not restricting the data coming through the API data feed, if it's available, it will be shown in Hiboo to see, the AdBlue level, the fuel level. We can see a histogram of activity throughout a day, as you say, with idling time, if it's provided by the manufacturer, is the bigger challenge.
Right, I think they've deserved to have a final break. No, Helen, come on, leave them alone, please. What's the final question, Helen? So, very, very quickly, was it quick?
No, well, that's my fault, because because when I came and I wanted to take it back to basics, to scour the market for every offering that was on the market. Flannery's already quite far progressed with Hiboo and had a working concept, but I took it back to base. But what I would say with Hiboo is that it's been refreshing the speed of development, how fast it's been acted on and implemented. I mean, for us, it's been night and day with access to the data, more data, and it's just a start, really. There's a lot more to come.
Oliver.
Yeah, I mean, we actually had a much faster transition than I expected, and I think that's actually mostly thanks to Andy sort of pushing at the start. But our side of things was very similar to Andy. I mean, aside from it just being a very quick turnaround time, it was also very flexible in terms of the customer service and everything like that, that sort of helped us get on board as well as get new things added to the system that we required. It was just, like Andy said, it was night and day for us. Just, I would say the customer service is the biggest thing there for us.
Fantastic. James?
Yeah, very quick. So I think we started scouring the market in January. We had a demo system in by early February after a couple of meetings, and then I think we put 6 or 7 OEMs in to start with. And once we signed on the dotted line and got all, a couple of the OEMs changed their tracking systems, so we had to get Hiboo to build new integrations. Those integrations take, on average, anything between 10 to 20 days, which, again, having worked in software, that's a pretty good turnaround. You could be waiting 6 months sometimes for new integrations to get built. So yeah, for us it's been quick and seamless.
And that has been a quick and seamless session, everybody. Please give a round of applause for Andy, for Oliver, for the wonderful James and Lewis. The bar is officially open. I've been your host, Peter Haddock.